starting now, the recording, yes. And then also one of the people I work with, Thomas Pott from DLR, he's also in this CAMS consortium, he's leading it. He would like to also give you some warm welcoming words.
Thank you, Anne-Marie. Good morning or good afternoon, everyone, and welcome also from my side to this user interaction workshop of the Copernicus Atmosphere Monitoring Service in Iceland. So my name is Thomas Popp. I work with the German Aerospace Center, DLR. I work on aerosol retrieval from satellite, but I also work on understanding user needs for CAMS. I'm sorry not to be with you. I had too many other obligations in this week, but we didn't want to miss this opportunity to connect our user interaction session with the High Latitude Dust Workshop, which is making a very good connection. And I've learned already, and I was surprised to learn that Slobodan was also not aware of the largest desert in Europe a couple of years ago, like myself. Yes, this workshop is co-organized with the Iceland User Forum, led by Pavla Daxon-Waldhauserova and Mikaela Rabalikova, who are in charge of the National Collaboration Program for CAMS in Iceland. And this is very important to connect those two. I have a talk later, so I will a bit more explain about the role of user interaction for CAMS. And now I hand it back into your hands, Pavla and Anne-Marie, thanking both of you for sharing, as I cannot be with you on site.
Thank you, Thomas. It was nice to see you from even remote, and we're happy to listen to your talk afterwards. And also from Anchorage to the Icelandic community, we have some people from Iceland want to say what this means to Iceland and welcome you. So Gunnlaugur Einarsson from the GeoSurvey of Iceland will say something. Gunnlaugur, the floor is yours.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Can I share my screen briefly with you?
Yeah.
See if this works. Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can see it.
Okay, so thank you for inviting me to talk to you this afternoon today. Unfortunately, this came up this morning, so I'm not really well prepared, but I have pulled together some materials to show you. But I want to point out that in Iceland, we have quite a bit of history of aerial photography, and online on the part of the National Land Survey of Iceland, where is this? They have put out most of their historical data sets online, and which can be retrieved for various historical purposes and analysis of this data. Now, there are also in Iceland very recent events, like the ongoing events in Reykjavik, where remote sensing data, satellite data such as Sentinel-1 INSAR data is very important for monitoring in the overview of these events that are going on. But there are also rapid response data sets collected, such as aerial photography collected on days of the event by the Natural History Institute of Iceland and the Iceland Land Survey. And in the event, after the events themselves, engineering firms are collecting remotely sensed data on the ongoing events and on the status of buildings for evaluating their condition. Now, this has been a relatively small event so far, but some of us remember the Eyjafjallajökull eruption back in 2010, where the ash cloud covered a large part of Europe and stopped most of the air traffic for quite a long time. So a workshop like this and data that is being collected is can be very helpful for the Icelandic conditions. So with that, I just want to say, have a great workshop and enjoy the rest of your time. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Gunnar. Good. It's very nice of you to be able to do this on a very short notice. It's really appreciated, and I think it's also good to be reminded the value of all the things that will be discussed in the room today and all the research you do, how that's fed into national levels. So, thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me.
And with that, I think we're about to start the in-depth presentation program. We will start now the first session with overview of the CAMS services. We will have the 3 talks and then followed by a question and answer session. So please, when the people do the talks and things like that, save your questions and then we will have discussions afterwards. So if there are really urgent questions, we can take them. But if you have something for discussion, that's super useful for us, for everyone. So I think we're ready now with Richard England from ECMWF to give his talk on CAMS and how it works and what does it offer for you. And what is available, what kind of data can you expect, and so on from CAMS, and what kind of user support is provided from CAMS. So, Richard, the floor is yours.
Yes, thank you very much. Thank you for the introduction. It's a pleasure to be here with you virtually, unfortunately, but we'll make it work. And very pleased to have this meeting with the Icelandic user community. I hope you can see my presentation now.
Yes, we can.
Yeah, all fine. Very good. So I'll provide a little bit of an introduction to what CAMS is and what we provide in terms of services with a little bit of focus towards Iceland towards the end. Obviously, there will be more in-depth discussions later on during the meeting to go into a little bit more detail where relevant, but I hope to give you a bit of an overview of what we do in CAMS and how it hopefully can be useful for user communities in Iceland. I'll start with Copernicus as a whole. So CAMS, the Copernicus Atmosphere Monitoring Service, is part of the Copernicus program, the EU's Earth Observation Program. Copernicus consists of, on the one hand, a range of satellite missions looking at the Earth and its environment, atmosphere, but also land, ocean, everything we try to observe with the Sentinel missions. More recently, the focus has been more and more on atmospheric composition with Sentinel 5P as a precursor mission, but in the coming years, several missions coming up really focusing on observing the atmosphere. But the other part of the program is in terms of the services. So CAMS is part of a set of services looking at climate change, the marine environment, the atmosphere environment, land surface, security and emergency. And the whole idea of the program as a whole is to make the best value out of the satellite observations and the ground-based observations that we also use by combining it with, for instance, Earth system modeling, forecasting models like we do in CAMS to provide added value services to the different user communities. Copernicus has as its aim to really convert the latest science into user-driven, free and open services. So we build on the science community and try to make use of that as much as possible. But we also listen to the users. What do they actually need? What data is useful for them? And how do we make it available in a good way? So this is very important for us. And the data is free and open, which is a key of the success of the program as well, I think. We generate a lot of data and everyone is free to use it publicly or commercially. It doesn't matter. Data is free and open to use. So focusing in on CAMS itself. So CAMS provides consistent and quality controlled information related to air pollution and health, solar energy, greenhouse gases, and climate forcing. That's our main tagline. And again, we do this by combining observations, so focused on the atmospheric composition, satellites, airborne, ground-based observations, combine it with the modeling we do. And to a large extent, is this in the same framework as weather forecasting has been done for decades. We apply this now to modeling atmospheric composition and air quality as well. And as outputs, we provide monitoring services. So what does the atmosphere look like at the moment? What does air quality look like at the moment? But we also provide forecasts, and I'll come back to that in a moment, both at global and European scale. And then, very important as well, tools to really make the data easily accessible to the users that need the data. And among the user groups, we count industry, businesses, government, policymakers, scientific community, and also the general public, not to forget. In terms of what thematic areas we address, this is basically our current portfolio, which we are expanding, and I will come back to that later in the presentation. But for now, the main focus areas are air quality, obviously very important, policy tools, so how can we support the policymakers with dealing with air quality issues, solar energy, providing data on the amount of solar radiation reaching the Earth's surface, and therefore helping with the planning and maintenance of large solar power plants, but also rooftop panels, for instance. The ozone layer and UV radiation, we monitor both the Antarctic and Arctic ozone distribution, and especially during the winter periods, winter, spring, the Antarctic ozone hole, but also over the Arctic area in cases low ozone concentration to happen in that period, which is of course very much related also to UV radiation. Then the emissions and surface fluxes. So this is looking at emissions that are really important for air pollution. So far, this has focused on making the best out of, for instance, national reported emissions and providing detailed data sets that properly reflect the emissions. This is one of the areas where we are expanding the portfolio at the moment. I'll come back to that. And then finally, climate forcing. How does atmospheric composition affect climate? This is a very small part of CHEMS, but very important as well, because atmospheric composition has a direct impact on climate. In terms of our workflow, sort of repeating what I said, but I think it's adding an important aspect here as well. So again, we start from observations. Within CHEMS, we use these observations together with our forecasting models at global scale, which is what we do at HLD with the same model that we use for weather forecasting, but also zooming in on the European area where we have an ensemble of air quality models, 11 at the moment, that each generate a daily forecast, and we use this ensemble to provide the best forecast we can do with this ensemble of models each day for the next 4 days. So this is really zooming in on the European domain and looking more at surface concentrations, while the global system looks more at long-range transport of pollution. There's a set of services around this. Some of them I mentioned already before, like the emissions, solar radiation, but the core consists of these two systems. They're very important. The thing I want to emphasize here is that we really need to work with the uptake of the data, the users that are using our data and using it for their own service provision. So this can be national environmental services, as you can see on the top of these examples, example from the Netherlands, France, UK, but also small companies developing smartphone applications that look at air quality forecasts, or as you can see at the bottom, TV channels that provide daily forecasts of air quality around the world, and here are examples from CNN and Euronews. And dealing with these immediate users that directly use CHEMS data, we can actually multiply the number of users by a very significant factor. If you only think about CNN, this is being watched worldwide, and the same applies to some of the smartphone or web-based applications that are being used. So we reach a lot more users than we can do just by ourselves. So for us, this is an important part of the program, work together with these downstream services, but also on the national scale, work together with environmental agencies to make sure the data can be useful for them and can be used in its countries. And Christina will come back on this in much more detail after my presentation, how we try to work with the member states on this topic. Accessing the data, the core part of this is what we currently still call the Atmosphere Data Store, although we are working hard to merge this with the Climate Data Store from the Climate Change Service. So it will be the common data, Copernicus Common Data Store in the future, but the concept remains the same. So this is the main portal to access the data, where you can find the data sets themselves, you can download data, you can find documentation, and you can find links to the evaluation of the results. So this is really the portal to access data. And here's an example of the data sets that we have currently available on the data store. So you can, again, click on each individual data set and find out more or download the data as well. In addition to the data store, we also provide certain tools. I mentioned them already before, especially in the policy sector. So there's a whole range of policy tools focused on air quality, making use of the daily air quality forecasts we generate, making use also of the annual reanalyses of European air quality we do. So this is reprocessing the observations together with the models we have to provide a consistent data set each year, looking back on previous years, and also using, in some cases, individual models to provide more detailed tools that help the policy making. And I'll show an example later on to really illustrate this for Iceland. Also very important is what we do in terms of training. We know it's not always straightforward to use the data we generate as a service. On a daily basis, we generate a massive amount of data. Yes, there are the policy tools, but they have specific, they address specific user needs and not necessarily all the user needs. So training is a very important aspect for us, and here we try to collaborate with others as well. So for instance, we work with ESA and EUMETSAT, generating training sessions, virtual or in person. And a lot more information can be found on our website as well. We really try to make sure users are able to use the data we have and can use it to the best they can. And then also important on this aspect is our user support. So yes, there's the data, there's the training, but there might still be questions about how do we use the data, or what is available, or something went wrong, I don't understand. So we provide support through documentation, through quality assurance, through the training, but then also with a knowledge base where you can search for a specific data set or for a specific domain where you are interested and find more information. We also have a user forum where users can interact and ask each other questions where another user might have more experience with a certain data set than you might have. And if you still can't figure it out, there's always the possibility to contact our service desk directly and have an expert helping you to find your way in the data sets. So we really try to support our users the best we can. Then going on a little bit more about what I mentioned earlier, the expansion of our portfolio. So CAMS has been running for quite a while now. We are currently in the second phase, which runs from 2021 to 2027. And we really are using this second phase to ramp up some additional services, but also interaction, or well, improve the interface with our users. In terms of the portfolio, the main area where we are expanding is highlighted in red. So this is a focus on emissions, both for air quality, but more visible at the moment for greenhouse gases. European Commission has tasked us to really ramp up emission monitoring services, and we're working hard now to implement this, supported by a whole range of research projects as well. So this is really a very important new element of CAMS as a service. For air quality emissions, one important idea is to improve our forecast by having more accurate emissions driving the forecast. For the greenhouse gases, it's really more in terms of monitoring and supporting countries with their reporting, with evaluating their own emission estimates, etc., etc. On the user interface, and again, Christina will talk about this in detail. We have two important new aspects. One is the National Collaboration Program. It's here still named National Uptake Scheme, but it's the same, where we work directly with member states to make sure we can improve the uptake of our data. And the other element is the Copernicus thematic hubs, where CAMS is responsible for the thematic hub on health. So all the information from the different services that are related to health, we present that in a common way, so it's easier to find the data you need. So this is how we are expanding currently the portfolio in this second phase. To come back to the emissions, and especially the greenhouse gas emission monitoring. So this is something where the Commission is really keen to use Copernicus to support mitigation efforts. The initial thinking already started in 2015. There was a CO2 task force set up that produced a series of reports, which you can still find online, to scope this new emission monitoring capacity within CAMS. There's this little illustration here that, again, shows the same concept as we have been doing in CAMS for a long time, combining observations with some prior knowledge. We already have information about emissions, integrated with our Earth system modeling capacity, and then generate emission monitoring data together with user support and relevant policy tools at global and local scales. So this is the ambition. We're working hard now to implement this. We have a set timeline to really achieve this. The goal is to become operational in 2026, which is together with the launch of a new set of satellites, the CO2 monitoring mission, which will become part of the Sentinel family, which will be able to measure CO2 and methane concentrations like never before, which we as a service can then use to provide the services on emission monitoring. As I said, we've been working on this for some time now, supported by Horizon research funding, but now we are at the stage where we need to ramp this up in CAMS. So we will start to come with sort of pre-operational products in the coming years, and yeah, really watch our website to see what is already there and what we are planning to implement. Then I just want to focus a little bit more, zoom a little bit more in on Iceland. So I picked a few examples of data that we provide, most of it on a daily basis, that might be relevant for Iceland as a country. So the first example is a very obvious one from last year, where we had enormous amount of wildfires in Canada, really extreme year for Canada in terms of fires, and of course devastating on the ground, but also creating a lot of emissions that were transported across the globe. On the left here, you can see the wildfires as we detected with our global fire simulation system, GFAS. So we monitor this on a daily basis, estimate emissions, and on the right you can see a forecast of carbon monoxide at higher levels as it was transported around the world. And with fires in Canada, but also often in Siberia, these do have significant impact on high latitudes and the Arctic region. So we really try to monitor this as best as we can in terms of carbon monoxide, other pollutants, but also aerosol, and for instance, black carbon. Very recent addition to our service portfolio is related to this, is our new aerosol warning system. So we have set up a system that uses the global forecasts each day to generate a map of anomalies. So we compare the forecast with the climatology for a certain region. So we really try to flag where there's a lot more aerosol than you would normally expect. This is an example of a dust storm coming out from Africa and going both west, but also going north at the end of January this year. This one just missed Iceland, as far as I'm aware, but you can see how it can extend quite high north. So this is a new service. We have been working for quite some time on this to make sure it provides results that can be trusted, that we do flag significant events, but don't get warnings all the time. So this is available on the website, and you can also sign up to an email service where you would get a warning for a certain area in your inbox. So we're really keen to have users look at this and give us feedback if it works or if it doesn't work, and what we can improve, etc. Another important aspect for Iceland was already mentioned, volcanic activity. And again, most of the impact is often on the ground. CHEMS does focus on the impact on the atmosphere. Other parts of the Copernicus services are more related to what's happening on the ground with the emergency service, for instance, or the land monitoring service. We look at the impact on the atmosphere, which can be very significant sometimes as well. But it's something that's not easy to address within a routine forecasting system. So what we try to do is use the satellite observations that are available, for instance, of SO2. So there are measurements from the YASI instrument as well as the Sentinel-5 P-OMI, and do measure SO2 in the atmosphere, which we can then use within our forecasting system to provide at least reasonably accurate forecast of the plume extent. And this is an example for December 23, where there was a significant amount of SO2 coming out of volcanic eruption. And we try to monitor this by using the satellite observations that are available. Currently, we can only do it this way. So assimilate when we have an observation and try to monitor the plume. The source estimation, how much SO2 and how much aerosol is or smoke is coming out of these volcanic eruptions is much more difficult in a daily running operational system. We are trying to see if there are ways to improve this as well. Of course, when we're looking back, there's a lot more room for adjustments. We can try to see if we can have a better estimate of these emissions. But in real time, this is a challenge that we are trying to address. Coming back to the policy tools, so this is a specific example for Reykjavik. I hope I pronounced it correctly. So these are tools that on a daily basis show what sectors are contributing to the concentrations of, on the left here, NO2, and on the right, PM10. So this can vary day to day in terms of what is the important contribution. And for instance, for PM10, you can see that for this particular week, most of it comes from natural, which is most likely sea salt. Aerosol contributes to it, but you can also see contributions from other sectors like shipping, traffic, etc. For NO2, it's split between traffic and shipping, mostly for this week, although there's a few other sectors contributing as well. So this is one of the tools that show you on a daily basis how we estimate the contribution of the different sectors to the pollution in a certain city. Other tools look at where is the pollution actually coming from? Is it coming from the country itself or from the local area, or is it really transported from other regions? So there's a range of policy tools that help understanding what's happening at a certain day. In terms of monitoring of air quality, we have been working with the European Environment Agency. They have a nice interface on their website showing air quality observations for the past week for all the measurement stations for which they collect data. So here again, an example for Iceland. What we have been doing with them is also include the CHEMS forecast for the first day to extend this time record that they provide on a daily basis. So what you can see in the box in red is actually the CHEMS forecast. So this plot was generated yesterday, so observations until yesterday, and then the forecast from CHEMS for the extra bit. So this is a really nice interface to not just see how air quality was in the past, but how we expect it to be in the coming days. Within CHEMS, we are actually trying to improve this. So this is also a very new product, which is for each site where we have observations, we provide a forecast that's optimized at the observation sites. So it's not coming directly from our regional forecasts, which are provided on the grid, but it's for each observation site using a method that's called model output statistics. So it's a machine learning methodology that uses the information that we have available in terms of the observation itself to measure our forecast, but also the air quality forecast as we generally make them for the region, to make a better forecast for this particular station than we can just get from the regional forecast itself. And you can see here two examples for NO2 on the left and PM10 on the right, where in blue it's the raw forecast. So this is coming directly out of the regional ensemble, and then in orange it's the optimized forecast for this particular location. So again, this is a new product. A lot of work has gone into it to make it as good as possible. And again, we need user feedback to really see if this is working as we hope it does, and see if this is bringing added value compared to what we already provided. My last slide, just in conclusion. So I hope I was able to show that CHEMS provides a comprehensive portfolio of data and information services related to atmospheric composition. We are extending quite a bit in the second phase with a much stronger focus on emissions and using observations to constrain these emissions, but also to increase our interaction with users, especially with member states, to improve the interaction between the service and what's happening at the national level. User feedback, and I'm sure Thomas will come back to this, user feedback is critical to the success of the service. We really need the feedback to improve what we do. Still keeping in mind that not all requests can be made reality. There are always scientific, technical, and budgetary constraints, but we strive to at least have a good conversation about new user requirements and try to do what we can to improve the service portfolio we have. And with that, I thank you very much, and I'm open for any questions.
Many thanks, Richard. It was a very comprehensive and super nice overview. I think there are many things that are new to the people here in the room, I think. But I think your overview was really clear and good. Are there any urgent questions to Richard for this presentation? Are you able to stay online for the question and answer session, Richard?
I will try. I have unfortunately another meeting I have to attend at 3 o'clock, so 2 o'clock your time. So I'm for sure until then. I'll try to stay a little bit longer. But otherwise, Christina and Mark can probably also answer questions.
Yeah. Just for curiosity, how many of the people in the room today comes from before or have worked with CAMS data? Well, for information, Richard, it's about 1/3 of the people in the room raise their hands. So I think this is it's very good to see that some are familiar with it and some are learning here. And we will collect also the input on some postcards afterwards and for discussion. So and also especially link it to all the products that we were shown today. How can those be taken up on the countries? So very good. Thank you again, Richard.
Okay, well, thank you.
And then I will reach over to the next speaker from ECMWF. That will be Christina Ananasso, and she's going to tell us more about the National Collaboration Program. Richard briefly mentioned them in one of his slides, so it's bridging up more on what do ECMWF when it comes to a national level to stimulate the uptake. Christina, can you hear us, and are you ready?
Yes, thank you. And yes, I'm ready to share my screen. Give me 1 second. Can you see my slides in the presentation mode?
Yes, perfect.
Okay. So thank you. First of all, I am very pleased to be here, even if only online. I would really like to come to visit the Highland, but this time was not possible. Thank you to Paola and Michaela that gave us the possibility to take advantage of your own workshop to present CAMS, to present the NCP, and in particular to organize together with Thomas this user event with the user communities in Iceland. So my name is Christina Ananasso. I work at ECMWF and I am the team leader for the Copernicus National Uptake and Thematic Collaboration. I'd like to start my presentation on the National Collaboration Program addressing this Rubik's Cube that give an idea on how Copernicus is evolving in the last months, in the last years, in this second phase, as already was mentioned by Richard before. The Copernicus services are there since a while now, and the CAMS is one of the core service, but we try together with the Commission to have a new approach to the user, to get closer to the user. So on the two slides, on the two sides of the Rubik's Cube, you can find the thematic hub, the ones that Richard already mentioned as well, where we are addressing some specific user communities. And in particular, relevant for CAMS is the Health Hub. On the other side, let's say the yellow one, we are really addressing the core user, the institutional user at a national level. So, and we do this through the National Collaboration Program. You have already seen these slides where is represented the CAMS architecture and the CAMS elements. The slides before had different colors, but the content is exactly the same. On the blue box, you will have the service element that produced the product, the core product of the service. And on the right-hand side of these slides, you have the different elements that are closer to the user, that put in contact the service with the end user of our products. And as you can see, the National Collaboration Program is an integral part of the system, of the service, and it is based on a strong request coming from the member state in the past year that was lengthily discussed with all the countries and with the Commission. These are the two main elements of this national collaboration program. From one side, CAMS want to address and want to respond to some national institutional user and their needs. So the idea is really to enhance the goal of this program is really to enhance the uptake of the CAMS product at a regional or even at national, and even subnational level, co-designing and co-developing with the countries some joint activities and some joint product or services. It's very important, this collaboration, because as was already mentioned by Richard, for us it's very important to receive the feedback, the user feedback on our products, and also to collect additional user needs that can help us in improving or redefining our services and our products. On the other side, what we are asking with this program to the different countries is to reinforce the use of the products for their, let's say, official, national or regional mandates, to assess the quality and the fitness of the fitness for purpose for CAMS product at national level. And having Iceland as part of this program, for us, it's really very important. And then, as already mentioned, we want really to strengthen the coupling between CAMS product and existing corresponding national product. We want also to improve the communication at a national level. So we want to reach national communities in your own languages. For us, it's not possible to arrive in each country with their own language, but having this collaboration program, we really would like to arrive to the single user and using his language. The approach that we use to design the collaboration program, the national collaboration program, is based on an initial proposal done by CAMS, based on different work packages or different topics, where each country can select among these topics. The only one that is mandatory is the communication, because we really we are convinced that the communication aspect is something key to promote CAMS and to raise awareness at European level. Within each work package, then the countries can develop their specific task that really respond to some specific national needs. In this slide, I reported, just to give you an example of the selected topic by each country. And here we have Iceland. We are working closely with Pabla and Michaela, and and also, let's say, this event is part of this collaboration. Just to give you an idea of the timeline of the roadmap and the involvement of the different countries, we started with the program in December 2021, when for the first time we presented the National Collaboration Program to the Copernicus User Forum. Then after less than 1 year, we signed the first contract. And then we keep, let's say, increasing the number of countries that are working with us. Last year, in June, we had the first Atmosphere User Forum during the CAMS General Assembly. A few weeks ago, end of January, we had the second Atmosphere User Forum where 105 representatives from 23 countries attended the meeting. So we really see that there is a strong interest to participate and to provide feedback and to exchange not only with ECMWF, but also among the different countries. And this is one of the aspects that I really like more than the other, let's say. We plan to have the third Atmosphere User Forum in June in Brussels, where we are going to have the CAMS General Assembly. So we are closing, let's say, at the end of, we close at the end of 2023, the first phase, what we call the first phase of the NCP. We have 15 countries with ongoing contract. 3 are let's say, joining us in a few weeks. In this first phase, the duration of the contract is 18 months with a budget allocated of 80K per year, per country per year. On the second phase, the idea is to have a longer contract that will cover the current agreement for CAMS, so till the end of 2027. This year, we have to start to renegotiate some of the project that started beginning of 2023. And then we have to start with the new contract and with new countries that we are negotiating with. In this case, the project will have a duration, a variable duration, but the end will be, in any case, and for all of them, at the end of 2027. And the budget allocated is a little bit more higher, because we consider that pilot phase finishing, and then we would like to have something more, let's say, operational. As you can see in this slide, there are all the countries are represented. We miss a few of them, and obviously we miss also UK because they joined back Copernicus only at the beginning of 2024, but for sure they will be part of the NCP. There is a web page here. This is the link where we explain what we are doing in the NCP, but also we want really to report what the different countries are doing. So here I put a screenshot of the web page for Iceland. Now all the information that you can find there are mainly, let's say, a preliminary kind of information on the activities that are supposed to be done during the project, but we have to start also to put there some concrete outcome that now we can really see when we, let's say, receive the deliverable or the reporting from the countries. We want to use this web page also to allow the exchange of information between the different countries and to promote the collaboration among them. With this, I close my presentation. Thank you for the attention. And again, thank you for having organized this event.
Thank you, Christina. That was a very nice overview of what can be done in Iceland and what sort of things that are taken into the contract and what the national collaboration program is. That so I think it's very good for people in the room to see what it's done in there. Are there any quick questions to Christina for this? Are you staying, Christina, for the? Very good.
Yes, I can stay.
Yes, so I think also we will then have more discussions on examples for what can be done in the training and what are the needs and who are the stakeholders that Christina and Richard and the others can take. Very good. And then I think it's time for Thomas to tell us a little more about very specific what is done in this contract and to address the questions that are topics and how you as users can be involved in this. So Thomas, the floor is yours.
Thank you. I think I can see my slide on the screen, but it's not yet in presentation. Now it's in presentation mode, right?
Yep, perfect.
Okay, then I go ahead. So as I said, I have the pleasure to lead a contract, CAMS User Intelligence, which is there to really activate this this aim that CAMS is user-driven. And I work here with a team at the DLR, at NILO, at Asmission in France, and CERC. You see the people involved. And what do we do? So a key element is what we call CAMS user interaction sessions. So this is a bit more than just a workshop, and I will explain this. So we always try to work together with the representatives of a user community in a country so that we really know about the issues and that we get to the right people in the country. Then we start with an interview or survey phase, limited with a small team that we have, to collect some representative insights in different applications relevant in the country. And finally, we bring all this to a workshop like today, which can be online, hybrid, or physical. And ultimately, together with the national co-organizers, we draw conclusions and we define possible follow-up actions. Either these can be input to the national collaboration program, next phase, which has just been described by Christina, or it can also define an activity in a country when the conclusion was this is not something that CAMS can do for all Europe because it's so specific, but there can be follow-up action in a country. We try to be strategic in selecting the countries. So we want commitment, we want a good geographical distribution and new application domains. I will come back to this in the end regarding Iceland. The interviews follow a structured approach with a use case template as a guidance in the interviews. And the workshop, like the one that we have today, brings then this interview candidates together with CAMS expertise and other users to discuss more broadly what are the needs. And finally, there will be a report. So today's meeting and all the presentations will be published at the CAMS website, and this report will be published. And there will be also this conclusions drawn together by CAMS and the national co-organizers. In the specific case of Iceland, the order of these steps is changed because this opportunity to link to the High Latitude Dust Workshop came rather close. We didn't have the time to do the interviews before, but we will do them after the workshop. And this, is a new flavor to this process. Let me just put this into a larger picture. This user interaction for CAMS has started with some of the research projects which prepared CAMS in ESA funding and in European funding, FP7 and Horizon Europe, Horizon 2020 at that time. So we have a history of many user workshops, not linked with this survey or interview element in almost all parts of Europe, not perfectly every part. And yeah, it's a pleasure now to go to Iceland as one of the corners of this map. I want to make one point about the focus of user interaction. It has changed a bit, right? It has extended a bit. For a large part, we have been collecting user requirements. So mostly technical specifications of new products, new capabilities of some of the services. But we have learned that reasons why CAMS usage is not as advanced as it could be are not only in the technical limitations that some of the products may have, but also in the collaboration, the information, the communication aspects. And therefore, we have now added this element of analyzing value chains, of understanding all the pieces, CAMS and other input of the output target community, identifying the gaps, the limitations, and the added value that can be brought by CAMS. So you see here an example from the collaboration with the Spanish user community on air pollution forecasts. And the analysis of the value chain showed in blue the CAMS value chain from global information, from satellite and meteorological modeling down to city information, and in parallel the national Spanish system, which duplicates to some extent the global and the European modeling, but of course has then the focus on real regional and local information. And CAMS is used as a statistical backup for understanding uncertainties, but there could be more. And this was identified at the end of this discussion in this report, that there could be better usage of the CAMS European, global and European level information, assimilating all the long-range transport information from satellite. However, it needs to be proven that this replacement does not disrupt any aspect that is already working well in the Spanish national system. So this is the kind of discussion that leads then also to further tasks in the national collaboration program, namely assessing the quality and comparing the outputs. I mentioned already the more technical element, which is a user requirements database. So we store all user requirements which are collected and raised to assure traceability. Where did it come from? Was it a single user? Was it a group of users? So everything in terms of user requirements that will be raised today and in the following interviews will also be ingested into this database. You see the numbers of requirements in this database on the top right. So there is a steady inflow since 2016. And you see a few examples of user requirements which have led to some extent to defining new products or to improving the capabilities of some products. So I pick out one, air control toolbox. This was a tool request for policy users to be able to play around with changing, with measures that they could impose, which impact they would have in the next few days in an episode of high pollution, for example. Yes, wrapping up a bit, in the last 2 years of this current contract, some most interesting findings. So the topic of dust exceedances, which as a natural contribution to air pollution can be subtracted from the exceedance of the air quality limits, is taking interest in many countries, and there is an activity together with Fairmode to assess possible ways of using CAMS information. Leonard Harrison will speak about this in the block after the coffee break. Yes, this element of proving the added value of CAMS in each country and specific to the needs of each country is driving quite some activities in the national collaboration program. Then policy tools are relevant as complementary overview information for information that is used in the countries. The handshake between the national collaboration program and this CAMS user intelligence contract is of course very important, and I think we can say it is really working well. And a topic that has not featured so prominently so far, except in Richard's overview, the CO2 monitoring capability, which is in the build-up. This is an opportunity for co-design, and several countries have also raised their interest here. Finally, in the graph in the bottom, you see number of active users counted for each quarter in the last 2 years. For those countries, Bulgaria, Denmark, and Spain, where we held user interaction sessions in the last year. You see the workshops with the triangles and the sessions of the interviews before in the color bars. And you can see there is an increase in numbers of active users. So there is an impact of those workshops. The numbers are normalized to 100% early 22. And Bulgaria was the country with the very smallest number. So the absolute increase is not as high. Countries where there were already large user bases, the effect is not so strong, but it is there, and it remains even after the workshop for some time. Now, today is the opportunity for the Icelandic community and also the Nordic community, I would say, so the high latitude dust community with the opportunity of this link to the workshop. Whatever feedback you want to raise, be it user needs, be it technical user requirements, be it feedback about usefulness or not of CAMS, you can do this to whoever you know from the CAMS family. You can do it online at the CAMS service desk. You can do it to me. And you can do it to your national co-organizers, Pavla and Michaela. Or you raise it in the discussion session that we have later. And then let me come to Iceland in specific. I said we want to do a strategic approach to select countries for our user interaction sessions. So the number of users who are logged in the CAMS data access files is very small. So there was one in the last quarter. There are some pieces of CAMS where there are no loggings happening. So that this doesn't mean this is the full number of users downloading data. We saw high motivation and potential in CAMS collaboration with Iceland. We see potential to increase the CAMS usage, and Iceland is kind of representative for a very specific set of environmental conditions with the volcanic eruptions, with the large dust emissions, but different features of those dust emissions, as has been discussed in the last 1.5 days. Yes, and I put here already this slide, which is planned for the last block in the discussions. I said we will have the interviews after this workshop. So this will be 3 to 5 user interviews trying to be representative for the different topics that come up. And explicitly, we want to invite any of you who feels inclined to do such an interview. You can contact Pavla, Michaela, myself if you are interested. So we would then add you to this interview group. One interview will take about 1.5 or 2 hours by one of the members of my team. And the goal is really to understand your user needs, and we will do this along this use case template. So please feel free to contact us if you want to be interviewed. We cannot do 10 interviews. So if there are overwhelming many interests, then we have to do a choice. And with this, I want to conclude and thank you. And if you have any questions now or later, please come up.
Thank you very much, Thomas, for this really detailed overview of what we do in this contract here. There were people in the room smiling when you said there were 1 user in Iceland, so I think we have a starting point for a discussion here.
100% increase.
No. So, and thanks to all the speakers for holding their time. I think we're pretty much on time. We have 10 minutes of the discussion now, where we will pick up or ask questions to the talks that we've seen. And also, as you saw, that Paula has circulated some small postcards, and we did that because sometimes it's easier to write down your questions on them, and we want to collect them afterwards to have some feedback. So also during the discussion, the question and answer session now to the speakers that we have, please write down some small things that we can use for building up the basis. We will continue to use that for the next session as well. So we will, for now, 10 minutes of a small discussion to start before the coffee break, and then we continue with the question. Any direct questions to the speakers? Christina is still here, and Thomas, and I think also Mark Farrington. So thanks for commenting, Mark. You put this comment on the fire products. I saw that in the chat. So yes, Paula?
Yeah, so I would maybe add, so yeah, me and Michaela, we put together of course the proposal for Iceland, but it's only based on the knowledge what we have. So that's why is it focusing mainly dust, because that's the research we have, like the strong background with. But we are aware of the other issues of measurements of anthropogenic air pollution, gases, greenhouse gases. So we are very welcome, like, to just add it into the particulate. So that's very important that we are not really focusing only dust, but generally the air pollution in Iceland, as we know, is quite not observed here very much. So that's just the starting point. Yeah, it should increase into all different air pollutants and mainly the raise awareness that the air pollution exists here as well. Yes, one comment.
And also, I know that in the room today we are people from many countries, and not only the Icelandic community, but also Thomas said, think of it as a Nordic thing. What can be done, especially for the Arctic, for example, not only training in your country, but you can widen it also.
I would maybe add on that as well, and that's exactly the high altitude dust. So I know more than 90% of, or even 95% of these areas are not monitored, and we have no idea of major parts what is actually happening there. So yeah, and it's the polar regions which are warming so much faster than the rest of the world. So yeah, this is the greatest tools we can actually use to get better understanding and some monitoring.
So what would be a typical stakeholder in Iceland that could take part of the CAMS training? You have, of course, your group, and we also saw the Geosurvey of Iceland.
And definitely, if I can speak for Thorstein, so the Environmental Agency of Iceland is one of the strongest agency here, which actually provides people with the air quality data. So
yes, I agree.
Beautiful. And then probably the Icelandic Met Office as well, because the eruptions. And then we have the monitoring here of greenhouse gases, but yeah, that community is still about to be reached. Maybe TV knows, but yeah, but it's a huge issue here as well. Not only that Iceland has a wetlands, but most of the wetlands have really long ditches in it, which produce a lot of greenhouse gases. So
maybe some of the online speakers, maybe, I don't know, Mark, maybe, because I saw in the talk that you mentioned also the CO2 MBS, and as you say, Paula, the uptake of greenhouse gases and all these things, it's not really in process as far as I understood.
yeah, but at the moment, many new stations are established. As I understood, new projects are starting. So yeah, the in-situ data, I believe, sooner or later will be coming from here, and that will actually give the first overview of what is happening in terms of greenhouse gases in Iceland, because so little is known.
We have a question. Like,
Can you just speak so that online people can hear it also?
yeah, I'm kind of curious how, like, I don't know CAMS properly, and I've heard about it, but I would like to know how can I access the data, and I mostly work in Python, so what's the process that I need to follow, because I'm like getting on the website and it sends me to atmospheric data store, and like further, how do I directly access the data, and in what format do I find this data then?
Mark, you would like to comment on that, maybe and point to the training course and things like that?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so I think this is an essential part of what we do, and Richard in his slide showed the links to this, to like the user support, and in there is a link to the training resources. So in terms of Python, I mean, so this includes some Jupyter notebooks that shows like basic access to the Atmosphere data store, which can be done through the web browser, but also there is a Python API, so it's very easy to download the data and make maps of the forecasts or analyses or any of the products that are there. I think I'll put the link in the chat when I finish answering the question. But we also do these training events, so there will be one actually hosted by Nilu. We're in the early stages of planning in September, so with Anne-Marie and Leonor involved in that too, and so this will be advertised soon. And but yeah, I think the resources are there, and they're getting better supported, and I think I think already there's quite a lot that can be done in terms of accessing and plotting the data.
Thank you. Yeah, and a follow-up question to that.
Yeah, no, it's not exactly a question. I would just to note that part of the project, what we are involved with Pavla, is that we would like to have a workshop in the late autumn, October or November, which will focus on working with the CAMS data. For example, how to download data, when to reach it. So it's just we would like to invite the Icelandic user community or whoever is interested in it to this workshop. So that's just, it's also part of the Copernicus National Program.
That's, I'm really happy to hear that you have taken that, and I think that is a key thing.
Yeah,
to
it
do,
was
right?
a part of the proposal what we submitted.
And this is what's driving the community
Yeah.
forward, right? To have that in the proposal and to be part of this training. And I'm pretty sure, Mark, you're already, and your team at ECMWF are already on board and helping you planning that.
Yeah,
but,
and I hope I will definitely cooperate with you.
yeah.
And also to the questionnaire which is circulate here, we try to figure out to which part we should focus. If we should focus on the basic data processing, how to download, or if we should focus on advanced methods of processing, or what is the need?
I think hopefully we can pick up some of these things today when you address here during the other session to see to which level do we need to put the start line, right? And I think it's, as far as I've understood, the Icelandic community is relatively small, but what you can do is that you can go relatively broad out to advertise it, to get users from different sectors, right, and have a very successful part. And all these Jupyter notebooks that Mark mentioned, they can be adapted to different kind of data. It's not fixed to one specific thing, right? So it's, and also there is a lot of nice, all the policy tools that Richard was pointing to. There are so many things that you could put into this training. And I think also Thomas, with his user database that we have collected in this program, has some experience when where to put it for each country. So, maybe Thomas, you want to comment a bit more on that, of which level to put the training for each?
From my experience, it is absolutely specific country by country. Which topics are important? So it's clear for Iceland, dust will be one topic. Greenhouse gas emissions could be another topic. And then the level of maturity is quite different between the two. So I could think for dust, more advanced usage is feasible because there's so intensive knowledge existing in the high latitude dust community, while for greenhouse gases, it would be really very starting level. And also CAMS capabilities are only emerging on this topic.
Yeah, thanks. And Mark, you also want to comment on that, I think.
Yeah, I think in terms of what's possible, maybe it's a conversation that we can have. But there are resources now available for developing training resources at a lot of different levels. So there's the very basic things that we already have. And like Henry says, they are adapted. It's fairly straightforward to adapt those things. But if we want something, if there's a need for something more specialized in terms of processing the data, bringing together different data sets and doing that, I think we have some resources for doing that. And there is a contract which the user engagement team for CAMS has, which is for like expert coders or expert programmers, scientific programmers, to then develop like a specific Jupyter notebook for a particular case. So that could apply for dust, for different size bins, for regional and global, and looking at deposition and, well, you name it, we can for sure consider it.
Yeah, thanks. Christina?
Yes, thank you. Something that we already start to do is really to collect, using the NCP framework, your need also on training. Now, this was one aspect that was discussed during the last Atmosphere User Forum. And indeed, as was said already by Thomas and Mark, the needs coming from the country are quite different. But yes, we will start soon to organize this training dedicated to the NCP contractors. Then going also to the project that specifically we have with you. Now, the idea is really to train the trainer. So we train the expert that you identify at national level. Then it's up to you in some way to train your user base on material that we can provide that is already available online, and for sure some of other material that we can develop together. So this is something that complement what was said before.
Very good, thanks, Christina. Yeah, I think it's at least what we briefly touched upon and discussed today. It's building a very nice basis for what you can do here. I think it's, you're part of the start. It's very good. Any other questions to the online speakers before we go to coffee? Are there any other questions in the chat that we did not touch upon? I didn't see. No?
No, nothing there.
No, okay. So thanks a lot again to the speakers. And then we have a short 5, 6, 7 minutes coffee break, and then we continue now with the special use cases after that.